Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this January the 28th, 2023, a Saturday. Yeah, I'm doing a Saturday show because this information is important that you guys know what it is. It says, what happens to society when the system fails? Well, it shows a picture here. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Can you see what's in the picture? That's what happens when society fails. And guess what? We're in a failing society. So you might run into trouble out there. Yesterday I did a show on trouble and how some ways to help you avoid it from happening in the first place by not looking like you're. See, we've lived in a very stable world, an expansion of debt, and this borrowing into the future has led us into a very stable world, but now it's about to become unstable. And so the things that worked in a stable world, like dressing for success, might not work in the kind of world that we're going into. It might get you in a lot of trouble. So what I'm going to talk about today, right now, is a couple things. The second thing I'm going to talk about is what's happening to the financial system right now, why gold and silver are going to suddenly become the most attractive assets out there, where they haven't been wanted for a while. Like for a long time, they've received no love, right? But first, I'm going to talk about, I'm also going to talk about why gold and silver are going to be taking an awful big bid pretty soon. But first, I'm going to talk about what you should do to actually, yesterday I talked about dressing for success and going out. The modern way you're going to dress for success is to not look rich. Yesterday I talked about that in my show. But now what if trouble finds you? And it can. What should you do? Well, let's talk about that. One of the big things that's going to save you in this modern world where trouble can erupt from nowhere is people are kind of like, you watch animals. People behave something similar to animals. I watch crows. You know what crows do around? There's a lot of crows around my yard, and I watch them, see what they're doing. They have a lookout crow. And he generally sits up in a high place while all the other crows are down there and they're doing their thing. They're not paying much attention. But the lookout crow, he's up in a place where he can see what's going on around things. And if something's happening, he'll start cawing in a certain way that they all know. It's an alarm call to all the others. Then all the others look up to see what's going on and scat out of there as fast as they can if the alarm goes off. Well, you can act the same way. You can be eyes on the world. Don't always have your head down in your cell phone and not paying any attention any longer. The first line of defense against trouble in this modern age is keeping you aware of the world around you. What's going on? Keep your eyes open. Keep your head up, looking for trouble. If you hear human voices start to raise in a certain way, anywhere around you, it doesn't matter if you're in a shopping mall, they're like the crows sounding the alarm. You can hear them. Their voice will start to raise. They'll start to get upset. You hear upset voices. People yelling. Right? That's an alarm. There's a problem starting. If you hear somebody and they're getting upset and they're getting mad, that can escalate. That situation can escalate. It doesn't matter if you're in a store and you see a person standing at the line, they're starting to get mad and they're starting to pound their fists, and you can hear the angry voices of the register person. You do not know how far that situation will escalate. For all you know, that person that's starting to yell and scream and stuff in the store or whatever, they might pull out a you-know-what next out of their handbag that you didn't know they had. And you could get seriously injured or even killed in situations like that if you're nearby. So when you first hear it starting, you might hear it over there. Oh, somebody's upset. And they're yelling and stuff. turn yourself on your heel and go in the opposite direction as fast as you can. Every time. Don't get curious. That's what people do. They get curious and they head toward the commotion. And it's the same way when you're out driving down the street or you're walking down the sidewalk. If you see a fight erupting, turn your heel and go in the opposite direction as fast as you can. If you see a car crash and you see smoke and fire and stuff, turn your heel around and go in the opposite direction as fast as you can. Don't get curious. The old saying, curiosity killed the cat, is very true. Go in the opposite direction. I know it's tempting. It's tempting. You want to see what's happening. You want to see the excitement, whatever. Remember, your life is more important than seeing the excitement of whatever the situation is. It's only trouble. And when you first spot it, when it's small and people are starting to yell or people are starting to run or there's signals, running people are a signal for you to run away from whatever it is too. Screaming people, yelling people, things being thrown, loud noises are a signal for you to go in the opposite direction. But every once in a while, out there, no matter how careful you are, no matter how you dress, the modern day of dressing for success, I'll call it dressing for success, is to put your old clothes on and stuff and not look like you've got money. But even if you dress for success and you've got your old clothes on, you don't look like you're not standing out in the crowd or anything like that, you got no jewelry on or anything like that. Even if you do that, every once in a while you get caught in a situation. You'll be walking to buy some bread or something and you'll decide to go down a back alley or something. And then you'll realize after you went down the back alley it was a stupid mistake. And 3 guys step out in front of you from the corner. What are you going to do? And they start to approach you. And there's always, now I'll tell you how the situation goes like this. There's always a lead guy. He's the leader. There's always a leader. It's his brainchild. And maybe he plans on mugging you. But he's the brainchild. And he has his followers. And they are almost like the way certain religions work. They have their leader and they have the followers. They're what do you call it? The name from zealots. They're zealots to the leader. And this is the way it works. This is mob mentality. There's always leaders in a mob. And even if you move into a smaller group of, say, there's just 3 of them, there's always a leader. And the leader is generally front and center. And he's the one that approaches you. Say he pulls out something, that goes click. And he says, give me your money. Well, I traveled in cities like some of the most dangerous cities in the world. And I carried something that I called a throwdown. And basically what the throwdown was is I'd take a bunch of small bills, a whole big pile of them, that didn't really amount to a whole lot of money, maybe $20 in total, $20 or $30 in total. Bundled them up in whatever the currency was of the country that I was in. And 3 of the biggest, most dangerous cities that I used to carry a throwdown in was London, Bucharest, and New York. Those are the 3 cities generally. And when I wasn't in those cities, I wouldn't bother. But I'd carry what I called a throwdown. It was, instead of just my regular wallet, I'd carry this throwdown. What the throwdown was a bunch of bills, small bills, that I'd put together in a bundle and basically taken several paper clips and put on them to make them like a billfold. Okay? Now, I never had it happen to me. I never had to use the throwdown. But it was there if I needed it. And what the throwdown basically consists of is when they want your wallet, You pull out that throwdown and you toss it in the opposite direction from them. Like, they'll be standing in front of you. You throw it past them. Not a great distance, but a reasonable distance. You give it a little toss. Well, they'll turn around, including the mob leader. The leader will turn around. And when they see what it is, they're going to head over toward it. Because that's what they want. That's what they wanted from you. It's there. You run in the opposite direction as fast as you can go. And don't stop. If they yell at you, don't stop. Just run as fast as you can. You run around the corner, and then you pull out your phone. And you call for help. Go into a store or someplace like that. Get out of there as fast as you can. Now, if something happens, that means if they didn't want to let you go anyway. If they do something to you when you're trying to get away. I'm going to tell you, I heard a woman on a program years ago, and she said, if you're ever abducted by somebody that's got bad intent, right? Never go to the second location with them if they take you to a second location. Because they mean you no good. Try to get away no matter how you can get away. And I'm going to tell you, go to Germany. Take a look at Germany, for instance, in their penal system. It's not a crime for you to try to escape in Germany. Now, in every other country, they'll add time to you if you try to escape, but it's not a crime to try to escape in Germany. Well, that's the way with this. It's no crime for you to try to get away from somebody if they're trying to do bad things to you. So, that being said, that's just what I used to do, is carry what I call the throwdown. Well, I call it throwdown because you throw it down. You throw it down. You don't throw it down right at their feet. You throw it down behind them. Give it a little toss. Here you go. And you do the same thing with a bad dog sometimes. It can save you having a few little tidbits in your pocket. Dog food or whatever, especially if you're going to go someplace where you know there's a bad dog. You can pull the same trick, and they'll run over to see what it is. It's just instinctive. Anyway, so the leader. Now you say, well, what about the other two guys there? Okay. They follow the leader. When the leader turns around to see what it is, right? They'll turn around to look what it is too. But say one of them doesn't. Say he's keeping his eye right on you, of the three guys that were in your way. Right? What if one of them you go to leave? Well, they won't do anything. They always wait for commands from the leader what to do, because they're not leaders. The leader's fixated then on getting the stash of cash. He's not paying any attention to you any longer. His attention is on that what he really wanted that went flying behind him. And the other two, they won't do nothing when you take off to run. It'll afford you the time to get around the corner if you're quick on your feet. And, you need to be quick on your feet sometimes. And this is also where things like some of these other channels, they talk about improving your health and stuff. And I believe that's true. You should try to, because we're entering into hard times like you guys have never seen times like these before. Now, I'm going to tell you what's going to create these times that we're heading into. The troubles are starting to already happen. The Chinese and the Japanese are the biggest holders of U.S. Treasury bonds. They're dumping them this last year. The Chinese have dumped like $210 billion worth of Treasury bonds over the past period of time. And they're continuing to do so, and so are the Japanese. They're divesting of the dollar. And deals are being worked between Saudi Arabia and the BRICS nations. Why are they dumping the dollar? And why are they linking themselves with the BRICS? Because they're not going to... People do not link themselves with a loser. We've set ourselves up for disaster. We are making ourselves... We could be the biggest winners, but we're making ourselves the biggest losers by having corrupt politicians pulling our system down. And it goes all the way back to the year when the Federal Reserve was initiated, back in 1914, 1913, 1914. When they set up our whole entire system as a Ponzi scheme. And now the East sees the decay of this Ponzi scheme, and what they're doing is they're jumping ship. Saudi Arabia is going to jump ship, and they're going to let us sink. They're heading over with the BRICS, and the BRICS are all jumping ship. This is a sinking system. This is the fall and decay of the Roman Empire. Right now. Happening right now. And the corruption within the system is what is taking it down. Now, I told you guys I was going to talk about gold. Gold's going to catch a bid. Why? Because they keep raising this debt limit, debt ceiling. And you heard about the debt ceiling? Have you heard about that? Well, it's the United States debt. They got this thing where they won't refund the government unless they pass through, and they have to pass these legislation in a bipartisan way to raise the debt ceiling, what's called a debt ceiling. They have a ceiling on how much they can spend for the United States government. And they have to vote on raising it, but they need bipartisan support. Well, for the first time ever, it looks like perhaps bipartisan support is deadlocked. There is no bipartisan support right now. And in fact, it's quite the opposite. I've never seen American politics more divided. This could lead, and very likely, very well, could lead to a downgrading of the United States itself, of their creditworthiness, if they go too far with this, not raising the debt ceiling in time. And say, well, Glenn, what does that mean? This means that instead of bonds being the most attractive investment to investors, also the negative correlation between the bonds and the rate of inflation makes the bonds so that they don't yield a proper dividend. Plus a downgrading of the U.S. credit rating, could very well lead to a period in time where bonds are not the safe haven investment everybody thought they were. Sorry. Do you know how big the bond market is, guys? And how small the gold and silver markets are? This is change. A sea change coming. For bonds, gold, and silver. A sea change, guys. What does that mean? It means the central banks are already starting to front run this. They're already starting to buy massive amounts. They're ahead of you guys. Already buying up the gold. I'm telling you guys, time to go for the gold. It's time. If you haven't done until now, this is your last chance. The train's leaving the station, guys. And this, the big one I've been telling you guys about, everybody says, Glenn, where is it? When is it? When's it coming? When are we going to get the gold rallies and stuff? And it never came. People say, oh, come on, Glenn. Buy gold and silver. It's not a good investment. There's too high premiums, blah, blah, blah. And I've heard all that for years, and I've taken it, and I kept telling you guys, it's good. It's going to be good. Well, now it's finally going to be good. It looks like it's really under our nose now. But you guys haven't seen it yet. You guys haven't seen what silver and gold can go to. And what about your money in the bank? They're getting ready to rob you blind. And if they don't rob you blind, inflation will. So listen, guys, you gotta do something to protect yourself. You know, we're gonna, even though it's Saturday, we're gonna take a quick flash at the markets and see where things are at right now. First thing we're gonna take a look at silver price at 23.60. Oh my gosh, that's cheap. And they've dropped the price. It was $24 and something. And right now I've heard it's the best selection out there you're gonna see probably forever, and they're gonna be forever waiting for another good selection period to buy, where there's low premiums right now too, and there's a good selection out there and you can get what you want. It's the perfect time right now. Take a look at cryptocurrency today. We're looking at Bitcoin at 23,048. It might not quite be the perfect time to buy Bitcoin cryptos. But, it's another way out of the dollar. It's just another avenue out of the dollar, but it's very volatile, so you got to watch out. And you got to know how to work the stuff, or you can lose the stuff. You can lose your password or something, and you can lose all your coins. So, you've got to be a little bit careful, but the gains on this stuff could be phenomenal coming up as the dollar dies. And yes, we are on the dollar dying now. Dow Jones Industrial Average, at where we closed out at close on January 27th, was 33,978. It was up 28 points. Now, this market right here is overinflated, and so is the S&P. But that doesn't mean it won't go higher if we start to hyperinflate in the currency. But before we do that, the Fed is creating this downward pressure on the markets, which has kept them from going anywhere for the last, take a look. If we take a look at the last 2 years, it's just been up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, marching in place. And this is because of what the Fed's doing right now. Okay, over the last 2 years. 5 years, give you a little bit better picture maybe with 5 years. You can see it, though, when the market made these peaks, and it's not going nowhere. That's all because of the Fed action. When the Fed action's over, and it will be, you ever heard of what's called a pivot? The pivot's coming. But only when we start to get in trouble. The economy starts to get in trouble, and then they'll be forced to pivot. S&P 500, 4070. It was up 10 points in the close. Taking a look at crude oil, and it's down $1.63 at 79.38. The bonds and rates now, we're seeing a 10-year at 3.5 and a 30-year at 3.62. You're saying, well, why is 30 years and 10 years so far out there, so cheap, compared to if we go into, like, U.S. 6-month or U.S. 3-month? 3 months is at 4.6%. It's higher, much higher than the 30-year at 3.62. Why? Well, one of the things is backdoor, probably the Fed and their cronies are probably backdoor somehow engineering it so that the long end has to stay down. Otherwise, they base the 10 years what they base the debt off of for house mortgages and stuff, and the mortgage market's already starting to roll over. So there's big money involved there, and they know it. A housing market crisis. They don't want, just like they don't want to have the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 and the Russell and all that fall big time. They got to keep that propped up. Well, they got to try to keep the housing market propped up too. And so they're juggling all these plates at the same time. They're juggling balls. They got 1,000 balls in the air, and they're trying to keep it all from collapsing. But it's slowly collapsing anyway. And then we get the debt limit on top of that, which is going to bring all the balls down to the ground unless they do something. And they're all different people involved in this. So some of them are right ready to let it go. They're saying if we don't get bargaining on the table, we're not going to give bipartisan support to this debt limit. Unless you bargain. You are going to bargain to the other side. And both sides are getting into this broil. They're getting all broiled, heated up, and everything, and it's going to come to a culmination. And if that culmination is past the date of when the whole thing runs out of these extraordinary measures, which is money they put away for this, but it runs out all simultaneously, all that money. What's called the extraordinary measures, which is the money that they put away from last time they took out a big lump of money. You know, that's how they do. They take out a big lump of money and then they all go out and buy themselves Cadillacs. But you know, they take a bit of that money and they put it away for what's called extraordinary measures. Well, extraordinary measures are going to run out. I'm not exactly sure when they run out, but if they go one day over that, they'll start not being able to pay things within the government. Things like even Social Security, they won't be able to pay it. And it's called a government default. And the U.S. government's never defaulted on their debt before, but believe me, their credit rating is involved in this, and this time is different. There's never been a time in history where there's less bipartisan support. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with this, but I'm going to tell you, things could really get hairy. Things could really get rough in the upcoming months. Taking a look at the U.S. dollar index today, 101.92. That's where she last updated on January 27th. And today is the 28th, so yes, yesterday. And it was 101.92 is where she sealed off. She went along sideways yesterday. And there's the thing. Guys, we're moving into a really tough world to live in. What happens to society when the system fails? This is the kind of world we're going to live in. And there's no way around it. We're slowly, things are disintegrating around us. You know, you've seen the front edge of this. You know, you think about 5 years ago. Most of you in my audience can remember what things were like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you went out for a hamburger, you know, and they were open, and you just stood in line, you got your hamburger. Now, you go out for a hamburger, and there's a little sign on the window, on the glass. It says, temporarily closed, or only one employee on duty, or whatever, and you have to wait for hours to get your hamburger. It's just a start. Because a year from now, you'll go back to your hamburger joint to get a hamburger, and the place will be burnt down to the ground. Nobody there, and you won't know why. But that's the kind of world we're going into. See that picture there? Thank you guys for listening to my show. Know that remember I made a forecast years ago, and I said there's going to be homeless cities. That in some cases are as big as the cities like not as big as New York City, but I expect the population to be in the hundreds of thousands of homeless cities, homeless encampments, homeless cities where they build little houses out of whatever they can find, cardboard boxes, tarpaulins, pieces of styrofoam, whatever they can find to build little houses for themselves. And there might be as many as 100,000 people living in homeless cities in the United States and in Great Britain. You're going to see it. And in Japan and in the Western countries. Thank you guys for listening to my show, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.